All right, England training is underway out in Kansas City, and Rob Dorsett is there for us, and let's join him now. Rob, great to see you. So first of all, any injury concerns to think about?
Yeah, well, the first question we always ask is how many players are out there, and I can tell you it's 25 out of the 26, and that's the first time since England have been out here in the US where a player has been absent, and the absentee is Bukayo Saka. Now, my understanding is we shouldn't read too much into that. We know he came into camp with an Achilles problem, which Arsenal were managing until for the back end of Arsenal's season. And Thomas Tuchel, who you're looking at now, he's got a different set of headwear on again. He tries a different set of headwear all the time. He's really not happy with the hat that he's been wearing. But anyway, Thomas Tuchel intimated the other day that Bukayo Saka probably wouldn't start against Ghana on Tuesday, and we reported as much to suggest that was the case. And Tuchel said then the third game against Panama, quote, is his moment. So I think it's fair to say that the England medical staff and the England coaching team and Thomas Tuchel have always been planning for Bukayo Saka to be good to go for that final group game against Panama. And everything else they do between now and then will be managing his Achilles injury, managing the minutes, managing the workload. The physio and the work he's doing away from the games is absolutely key. And so I think England would say he's still on track to play that third game. But you have to say the fact that he is not part of this training session, he's not part of the group, is a concern. Because they've been managing that Achilles problem, and he's still been able to train. In the first 15 minutes we've seen him in the group every single time. So yeah, concerns about Bukayo Saka. The FA, I'm sure, will play it down if they were to talk to us, but they never give us too much details around player fitness and that sort of thing. And in his absence, there will be concerns. Good to see Declan Rice out there that you're looking at now, England's vice-captain, because he was taken off towards the end of that game against Croatia, having indicated to the bench that he had a bit of a problem with his lower back. He was pointing to kind of the top of his backside. And Thomas Tuchel decided to take him off as a precaution. Now, again, that's something that the Arsenal player has been managing towards the back end of Arsenal's Premier League winning campaign. He's been having injections in that back, and clearly he's not completely 100% clear of it. That's why he had that discomfort against Croatia. It was why Tuchel brought him off. But the fact he's out there training now with a big grin on his face, look, a big smile on his face, is good news for England. The other injury concern was around Marcus Rashford, and he is out there. And that's really good news for England to see him out there. He couldn't have picked a worse spot, could he? Look, behind that mannequin, right over the far side of the training pitch. But it looks like he's pretty well relaxed. Look, you can see him smiling and joking with Eberechi Eze there and Harry Kane to the side of him. But Rashford had complained of a tight hamstring right at the end of that Croatia game. And again, he's been sort of analysed and assessed by England's medics. And he's out there now training with England today, which is good news, because he made a big impact when he came in off the bench, and I suspect people will be thinking that he's maybe did enough in that 20 minutes to suggest that he might get a starting place against Ghana ahead of Anthony Gordon, but only if he's fully fit, and it may be a fitness decision about Marcus Rashford. We don't know, I should point out, whether he's going to take a full part in this training session. We don't know whether he took a full part in the training session yesterday, which was behind closed doors. We only get the first 15-minute warm-up. But on the face of it, good news about Marcus Rashford and Declan Rice. Bit of a concern over Bukayo Saka.
And Rob, what do we anticipate potentially for a shuffling of the pack against Ghana this week? You know, it was such an incredible performance in the second half against Croatia. Is Tuchel likely to change the set?
I don't think he'd want to make too many changes, but again, he's very difficult to predict, and what he considers his strongest 11 might differ from match to match and depending on who the opponents are. We've got a nice clear shot of Marcus Rashford now, which is nice to see him moving pretty freely. He doesn't seem to have any concerns about that tight hamstring that we saw at the end of the Croatia game. But I want to mention Noni Madueke, because in Bukayo Saka's absence today, it's good news for Noni Madueke. Right over on the far side, there he is, look, just emerging from there. I thought he was really impressive for England, especially in that first half against Croatia. because he won the penalty, which Harry Kane scored at the second attempt. So it was Madueke who helped force England's first goal in this World Cup. And I think now, with the concerns over Bukayo Saka, there's a very strong chance that Noni Madueke will keep his starting place against Ghana. Much to happen. Remember, this is the first of 3 full training sessions for England before they play that game on Tuesday. But I think Noni Madueke can be very pleased, very proud of that debut he made for England, his first game at a World Cup. And with his Arsenal teammate and very close friend Bukayo Saka struggling a bit with that Achilles problem, probably a good chance. He'll be fancying his chances of getting another start against Ghana.
And Trevor Chalobah's a name who's been called up late to the camp. How does his arrival impact things?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. You're looking at Ezri Konsa there, but there's Trevor Chalobah. The first time we've seen him training with England out here in the US. And you wonder what's going through his mind, don't you? Because he was on holiday in the country when he got the call from his former Chelsea manager, Thomas Tuchel, to say, do you fancy coming joining up and being part of England's World Cup squad? His jaw must have hit the floor. This isn't his first training session with England. They had a closed doors training session yesterday, and I understand that Chalobah took a full part in that. It's the first training session with England on American soil that we've seen Trevor Chalobah taking part, and he will be absolutely delighted to be here, and he's adapted pretty quickly. One of the biggest problems they had, he's just having a yawn there. Maybe he's still adjusting to the time difference. Maybe he's got a bit of jet lag. But yeah, a massive moment for him. He's only had 1 England cap in his time, which was 12 months ago. So a huge moment for him to be called up. And of course, there's been a lot of discussion about whether that's the right decision that Thomas Tuchel took, especially because he'd lost at the right back. And Trent Alexander-Arnold was not even in the discussion to come and replace him. So there you go. There's Reece James. The backup to Reece James is now Jarrell Quansah, we understand, because Trevor Chalobah has been called up to cover for what would have been Quansah's position at centre-back. So it's a technical point from Thomas Tuchel, but he likes having 2 players to cover each position. And instead of calling up a right-back, he called up a centre-back. And as a result of that, Jarrell Quansah will now be considered as a centre-back cover. As a full-back cover with Trevor Chalobah as a centre-back cover. But it's nice to see the players so close to us and going through their paces in what is a glorious day. It's a nice temperature. It's 24, 25 degrees right now, not too humid. The players will enjoy this. And it's something we'll discuss later, I'm sure, about how they will cope in Boston, which doesn't have an air-conditioned stadium. It's likely to be very, very humid, 94%. Will that man in your screen and the man behind him, Elliot Anderson, be able to play the high press? We saw really great energy from Jude Bellingham, didn't we? For me, alongside Harry Kane, England's best player against Croatia, scored that crucial 3rd goal early in the second half. And let's be honest, it was his drive, it was his personal effort at the start of that second half, after the critical words of Thomas Tuchel at half-time for the team that said, look, get out there, play with some freedom, play more attacking football. It was Jude Bellingham who really took the game by the scruff of the neck and did exactly that, scoring that goal with a 30-yard run down the right wing in just within a couple of minutes of Thomas Tuchel giving the instructions. And I'll just take you across to Thomas Tuchel, because look, he's sometimes he takes himself off and watches training sessions from afar. He's very much involved in the middle of this. He's directing stuff, which is interesting. He's telling Jude Bellingham what he wants. He's telling Anthony Gordon what he wants. And that is a deliberate ploy. Thomas Tuchel is quite an enigmatic manager. He doesn't do anything by chance. He is open. He's playing to his left foot. He wants this passing very, very precise. He wants the players to not just pass to a teammate, but pass specifically to their foot where they can make a turn. And look, we look at this training session, it was just like a little bit of a kickabout, the rondos and that sort of thing, the drills that they do beforehand. Not a bit of it for Thomas Tuchel. He is very precise in his preparation. He wants the players to take his instructions on board very, very closely. And that was a really nice moment there to see him directing the players absolutely first-hand and close up. He's gone over to one of the other groups now to do exactly the same, by the way.
And Rob, we talked about the humidity just there, didn't we? The conditions very much different to that air-conditioned stadium that they played in Arlington in the opener. What are the expected sort of changes that Tuchel might bring in light of that?
Well, it's an interesting one whether England can still play that really high press that Thomas Tuchel has been demanding. He's back here again. Let's look at Tuchel again, can we? It's very rare that we see him this involved. He's really ordering one player and open up. It's technical, it's tactical speak that he's giving to them. He is not letting these players rest at all on their laurels and get sloppy with their passing or complacent. He's watching everything very close up. The players will be very aware of his presence right now. But yeah, that high press that England have used in that opening game, and it's the Premier League style of football that Tuchel wants these guys to play, was very possible in Dallas because it was an air-conditioned stadium. Not so in Boston, where the humidity, as I say, is expected to be very, very high, 94%. It's a very open bowl. We saw that from Scotland's game, very exposed to the sun and the elements. And I just wonder whether that will affect the sort of energy levels that England will be able to have, the type of game they will be able to play, etc., etc. Tuchel has said not, and look, it was incredibly hot and humid against Costa Rica in Orlando for England's final friendly, and they did play with that tempo. They did play with that high press. So they've proved they can do it in those conditions. It might not be so easy for them to do it in a real hard game like this. While I'm talking to you, I want to take you across to Jed Spence, who's just over there looking very cool. He was really impressive for me in the warm-up games. And look, the biggest concern for England, I think, in that game against Croatia was defensively. I thought at times they were a shambles. John Stones is still trying to adjust after playing so little football. He ended up on his backside twice when one of the Croatia players turned him, and it led to one of the two Croatia goals as well. I thought Reece James found himself out of position too much, often drifting into the middle, leaving players at the back post. That's what happened for Croatia's second equaliser. So Jed Spence might fancy his chances at left back in place of Nico O'Reilly. We'll just monitor those defenders over the next couple of days and see what Thomas Tuchel is thinking. But we'll hear later from Dan Burn.
Scotland's tactics during their 1-0 defeat to Morocco last night. Defeat for Steve Clarke's side has left their hopes of reaching the knockout stage in the balance ahead of their final group game against Brazil.
Obviously disappointed to lose. Really poor start. The start that no one prepared or would have imagined, but at that point you need to regroup, get yourself into the game and build your way into it. I think we had a spell in the first half where we improved a lot, but the second half was much more what you want to see for a Scotland team. And on another night, the margins are so fine that you could nick a 1-1. But we're a resolute group. What we lack sometimes in quality to compete with the top 10 we have in fight and character. And you need to get the balance right. If you go gung-ho against teams, they can pick you off. They've got quality players playing at the top level. So I felt as if we got the balance right tonight. I think people will obviously have their opinion and say go gung-ho earlier, but if you're sat with a 3-0 defeat tonight, you're probably thinking otherwise. So I think we handled the game well. Can we improve in many areas? Of course we can always improve, but I think the growth for this group is evident and we can keep going.
One of the big talking points from the game was whether Scotland should have been awarded 2 penalties for challenges on Scott McTominay and John McGinn.
Penalty?
100%. When a defender's running at full speed to try and win the ball, he misses the ball and takes you out. It's a foul anywhere else on the pitch, and 9 times out of 10 you get given a penalty for it, but we don't make the decisions. It's obviously one that hurts us. I've watched it back. I felt at the time it was a penalty kick. I've watched it back. If you beat him, knock the ball past him and he takes you out, it's a penalty, and I haven't seen any footage yet where he touches the ball.
Better news for Scotland comes from the 3rd place league table. Scotland have played 2 games when most other teams have only played once, but they are currently top when it comes to the best of the rest nations. The top 8 3rd place teams will all go through.
I think you've got to understand who you're playing against and the level of opposition. But if you look at how the team was set up, Kieran Tierney playing on the left-hand side, it gives you a sort of defensive sort of mindset. Ben Doak obviously didn't play and come on as sub, but again...
Did that surprise you?
No, it didn't, because he's coming back from a long-term injury in terms of the hamstring he pulled playing for Scotland against Denmark, so Steve will be thinking of that. Shea Adams probably is the one that plays if you're looking to try and get in behind compared to Shanklin, and we wanted that extra body in midfield. For me, McTominay's not a number 6, he's an 8, and you can push him higher. He's better higher up the pitch, and he's got the legs, can run in behind. Disappointing in terms of result, but we gave ourselves a chance now, and we're still there. But again, we talked before, that goal difference could make a huge difference.
It doesn't get much easier for Scotland, though. Next up, they face the most successful World Cup nation in history, Brazil. So can they cause an upset?
It just doesn't get any easier for Scotland, does it? I think Brazil are ranked, 1 or 2 in the world or something, after Morocco being 7th. I think the game will be similar. Scotland won't, go all out to start. They'll look to stay in the game and then build their way into it, as they did last night. How do I see it going? I think it'll be similar. You've got to expect that from Scotland. They don't overly create too many chances. Seen it last night. They played well, but they didn't have a shot on target. That's going to have to change on Wednesday night. But I'm hopeful. I think I looked at it before the Morocco game and probably thought that they were probably better suited to getting a point off Brazil than they are Morocco. I've said that as well, but that's where we're at right now, thinking that you can go and get a point against Brazil to qualify for the World Cup last 32. But listen, you've got to do it, haven't you?
You have to realise what you're playing against. There is a real realism amongst us as a Scotland fan. The real people that understand the game is that, we're a nation that we've had some good moments, and this will be a special moment if we can do it. But it's going to be a tough game.
So, as we've been hearing, next up for Scotland is Brazil on Wednesday as they look to book their place in the knockout stage for the first time. But the 5-time champions will be boosted by the return of